IVM.
Hi, I'm Satyajit.
Hi, I'm Racheta.
Welcome to Paperback by the Open Library Project.
We have as our guest today Mayank Gandhi, author of Aap and Down, which we deep dive into for the first half of the podcast.
In the second half, we also discuss My Experiments with the Truth by M.K. Gandhi, Autobiography of a Spiritually Incorrect Mystic by Osho, Autobiography of a Yogi by Paramhansa Yogananda, and books by P.G. Wodehouse.
Mayank discusses the rise and fall of the Aam Aadmi Party with a detached and objective view, Osho's self-appointed stature as Bhagwan, what today's politicians can learn from Gandhi's teachings, and the life of the thought leader Paramhansa Yogananda.
Let's listen in.
On my way to the airport, I kept getting calls from volunteers and supporters seeking information on Aap's future. Was it united or dismembered? What could I tell them? They wanted to know what exactly had transpired. But I had been silenced by a gag order. I was shattered from within. On the one hand, I had been unable to secure the party. On the other, I was unable to even speak openly to the supporters. I could understand their anguish and anger. They must have been felt so betrayed. At the airport, I kept mulling over a couple of existential questions. The first question was, who is the primary force in a party, the leader or the volunteers? The 23 people in a room with voting powers or the millions of supporters outside? I recognized the need for a power structure and trust in decision makers. But we were not in a boardroom. We were a volunteer-driven party. Therefore, volunteers had to remain supreme. We had to keep them in a loop about key developments. Not doing so was an affront to their dignity. The second question that confronted me was whether I ought to abide by the diktats of the party or listen to my conscience. Was it important to please Arvind and a few around him, or acknowledge the dignity and rights of lakhs of supporters by informing of the day's tumult?
Thank you, Mayank Gandhi. That was an excerpt from his book, Aap and Down. We'll be right back after this to discuss the book in further detail.
Hi, my name is Anupam Gupta. I'm B50 on Twitter. I am the host of Paisa, the show that talks money. On my show, I speak to experts from every field of money and finance. From stock markets, equities, debt funds, credit cards, life insurance, every possible area of money and finance that you can think of. We even did an episode on cryptocurrency. I've got fantastic guests from mutual funds to personal finance experts everywhere. Robo-advisory, startups, just name it, we've got it. At Paisa, we help you make smart decisions about money. You work hard for money. Now make your money work hard for you. New episodes out every Monday, and you can listen to my show on the IVM podcast app or any other podcasting app that you have. Paisa is brought to you by Paytm Money.
Welcome to Paperback by the Open Library Project. I am your co-host Satyajit, otherwise known as Onion Knight in most food circles. I'm hosting the podcast with my partner at the Open Library Project, Racheta Sharma.
Hi guys, my name is Racheta and I'm an ex-banker who gave up my banking profession to follow my passion and run libraries across the world. The Open Library Project is a non-fiction book library service offered to businesses on a subscription basis. We're trying to move away from the run-of-the-mill library concept by setting up rotational and locational curated libraries at co-working spaces, corporates and business incubators. The idea here is to create value, build a knowledge community, and encourage a growth mindset amongst our members.
Today we have with us on the show Mayank Gandhi. He is a social activist from India and was previously a member of Core Committee in the India Against Corruption movement and a national executive member of the Aam Aadmi Party. Presently he is the chief coordinator of NGO Global Parli, which aims to bring rural transformation to drought-hit villages in Maharashtra. He is also the author of Aap and Down. Welcome to the show, Mayank.
Thank you.
So before we dive into the book, I just had a sort of comment on the choice of your books. Your book itself is like an expose of the truth of what happened in the Aam Aadmi Party, and the other books that you've chosen also have something to do with honesty and truth.
They're all based on thought leaders, basically. So it's
looking forward to this conversation.
Yeah, absolutely.
Sure.
So tell us a little bit about Aap and Down. What led you to writing this book, and what was that experience like?
Actually, there have been thousands and thousands of books that have been written on the independence struggle.
Right.
But nothing very authentic or very substantive about a very important slice of history, which was this India against corruption and Aam Aadmi Party. In the history of this post-independent India, this has been a very crucial period. And I felt that by virtue of being an insider, I knew something and which I needed to bring it out so that in the future when there are movements or when things like that, there would be some learnings out of this.
Yeah.
The other more important aspect was that there have been crores of people who have invested with their hopes, with their aspirations on this party.
Right.
And when so much happened which was not so good, I think it is necessary to give them the dignity of letting them know what actually happened. So I felt that was my duty to do that. And third is a little personal. I think it also completes my cycle because there was this internal turmoil, and once I wrote the book, I think that entire thing came out.
Like you mentioned in the extract, right? You were struggling with the gag order, which was not allowing you to tell these lakhs of supporters the true intention or the true actions that were going on.
The main thing is the existential question whether the 23 people who were sitting in that room, when we decided to remove Yogendra Yadav, Prashant, and take the party in a certain direction, are they supreme or are the crores of people who form the party, who are the supporters, are they supreme? I think that question I had to address.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. And that's what's addressed in the book, right?
Absolutely.
It goes from being... So I think the intention with which it started was a lot to disrupt the existing norms in, a political party. But it somehow lost that constructive, development on the way somewhere.
See, we've been struggling all our lives.
Right.
When we look at the political scenario, how do you create a new political alternative? How do you create a new political narrative?
Right.
Fortunately, we did show the world or the country that we can do an alternative politics and be viable.
Right.
Yeah.
So we won 67 seats. After that, I think things happened which I have described in the book.
Right.
Why we went and became another party. Why Aam Aadmi Party became a BJP and a Congress. Because once you did that and you wanted to play the same caste politics, you wanted to play the same communal politics, you want to do the same corruption, then those are past masters at that. You have no chance. So now you are stuck. You are neither an ethical party, you are not a party like the BJP or the Congress. So I don't think you are ever going to win election because now you are stuck between two stools.
But I believe in the initial days of, even I was kind of around during those days. I remember attending a rally at BKC in Bombay where literally everyone walked from BKC to Azad Maidan to demonstrate the support for the party. I remember you making a very arousing speech at BKC. And the thing that I remember the most is the atmosphere of sheer hope. And, people was so, for the first time in my life, I had seen people so hopeful of a political party or, even of the people they were supporting. They're just out on the streets and supporting them. And these were people I knew personally who had no interest in politics before.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
In 1975, after the emergency, I almost left my studies and fought against the emergency. And 2 years hence, the Janata Party experiment disintegrated with them fighting. So there was this pain within me.
Right.
And it took 37 years for a new movement to come up and people to support it.
Yeah.
Now today with the betrayal that has happened, I think it will take another 5 decades before anyone would trust another political party.
Yeah.
So really, it is not just about one political party or one individual leader or anything. It is about the betrayal to the youth of this country. How will they go back and try to create a new political alternative? It is seeming like a hopeless situation.
Yeah, like you mentioned in the book that, Indians are of that mentality that we are always looking for a hero or a knight in shining armor to sort of, solve all our problems. But yeah, sort of getting that kind of a movement to come back again would be
the entire ecosystem, environment, the leadership, the Anna Hazare, all of them came together to make this happen. These kind of things would come together next is looking very improbable for many, many years.
Right, right.
So who would you recommend this book to? Like, who do you think should who will really benefit from reading this book?
I think what comes out in this book is certain human frailties that have come out.
Okay.
And once you come to power, how those frailties get exaggerated,
Right.
and how they mess up the complete movement and the hopes of people as you start getting centralized into yourself that I will say this, I know best, I know things. So I think there is a huge, of course, political people who are interested in politics, who are interested in history, but people who are also interested in the psychology of people who are in power,
Yeah.
who have some kind of control over the minds and the hearts of the people, and how they react in different conditions. So I would think that any person who likes to read should be reading this, because there are some serious interesting anecdotes and interesting insights which will give a peep inside the minds of people.
Absolutely. You've given a very objective perspective to, the controversial party, like you've called it. And so I definitely think that, people should derive at least how, you should be behaving when you are in power, or the pros and cons that come with power.
You are in power, not many people can come in power,
Yeah.
but at least you can understand how people in power behave and why
But
they
it
behave.
could be at different levels, right? In an organization, it's
Sure.
the boss who is, the CEO who's in power.
Right.
So in whichever context you want to see it.
Yeah. So great. We're going to take a short break and we'll be back after this.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to another awesome week on the IVM Podcast. If you're not following us on social media, please make sure that you do. We're IVM Podcast on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. So just wanted to make a note for everybody. We do have this new Alexa skill that we've created for Cyrus Says. If you have an Alexa, please say play Cyrus Says, and you should be able to listen to the podcast on the Alexa from now on. Speaking of Cyrus Says, this week Cyrus is joined by Dr. Vishakha Shivdasani. They talk about healthy eating and nutrition. And Vishakha clears Cyrus's confusion about the professions of nutritionists, dietitian, doctors, and health coaches. This week on Geek Fruit, Tejas and Dinka bring on producer Zoya to discuss Interstellar and the Dark Knight trilogy, and rank the on-screen portrayals of Batman. On the Sponge podcast, Ambi Parmeshwaran talks about what makes for a great client and agency relationship, and how not to get caught in intra-company crossfires. On MF101, Anupam talks to Manish Dangi, co-CIO Debt at Aditya Birla Sun Life Mutual Fund, about debt mutual funds, its characteristics, and current scenarios. We've launched a brand new sports show called What a Player, where the hosts give you insights about the latest games, scores, and strategies. Do check it out for updates about the ongoing T20 Cricket League. New episodes are out every morning. This week on Dating is Garbage, our hosts invite the first couple on the show, Naveen Narona and Abhishek Tundel, to talk about the green flags of dating. On Croc's Tales, Anand Sivakumara narrates tales of friendship, dating, and love, all centered around the phrase "Kuch meetha ho jaye." This week on our Kannada podcast, Thale Arate, CV Madhukar discusses how philanthropy and impact investing can make a difference in our society. And with that, let's get on with your show.
Welcome back. We still have with us Mayank Gandhi, author of Aap and Down. So Mayank, the first book that you want to talk about is My Experiments with the Truth by M.K. Gandhi. So tell us a little about why this book, there are so many books written about Gandhi, and why is this book the most special, or the one that stands out for you?
See, I think I like to read, or I like people who are authentic.
Okay.
With all their limitations, with all their strengths, but somebody who's honest, who's authentic, what you see is what you get.
Right.
So, and Gandhi, you cannot find a better person than Gandhi, who's been so candid, so honest, who not just gives you what decisions he took, but he will go through the process, why he took that decision, what are his frailties, what are his mistakes he made. He will actually call them Himalayan blunders. So an extraordinary person, and through his book, through his own writing, I could peep into his life and into his thought process and into his family. I think we have been very fortunate that somebody has written a book like that. And when I was young, this was my Bible.
Right.
I used to read this and love the fact that there was somebody like this who existed in this world. So I see all artificial plastic people around. So when you get one Gandhi, you want to hold on to him.
Yeah, and also, autobiographies have this advantage that, they can inspire so many people's opinion, or, the choices they make, because it gives you a sort of direction that, these are the things which we failed at, or these are the things we did really well. And it sort of inspires you to.
And no, see, there are so many autobiographies.
Yeah.
But this one is so simple, touches your heart, talks about values, talks about things, and then talks about how he achieved and how he failed. I mean, it's such a simple, straightforward guidelines that it brings you if you are able to hear it, if you are able to get it inside. Otherwise, it is just another book.
Okay. So it's really put very simply, and you need to read a little bit beyond the lines to get really the feeling.
Just when you meet
of
an
authenticity,
authentic,
of
genuine
authenticity.
person. With this book, you go and meet him. Unfortunately, I was born at a time when he was not there. So this gave me a chance to see why would people follow Gandhi in millions and millions.
And literally led a country out of...
Led a country in a time when there was no technology, no communication.
When you just think about these things, you just imagine that how did even people get to know at those times? I mean, we are living in such a connected world right now. It's
there's one thing which I learnt out of this, which I must say. Gandhi came in 1919 to India from South Africa.
Right.
And he was told that why don't you get into the struggle with the English. He was an Englishman, Gandhi. He studied in English. He went there. He dressed like an Englishman.
Right.
So he told Gokhale that give me 3 years. I want to travel across the country. And he traveled across the country for 3 years. And looking at the ethos and the soul of this nation, he created weapons. A weapon called non-violence. A weapon called satyagraha. A weapon called enunciation where he only wore a dhoti. And that weapons came out from the earth of this country, from the soul and the ethos of this country. So when I quit politics, I was an urban man.
Right.
I was a consultant to 23 countries in the world, and had never seen a village in my life.
Yeah.
And I was so incomplete.
Okay.
And I did not understand India, and I felt ashamed that I did not even know Marathi while living in Maharashtra for years.
Right.
So for 3 years, like Gandhi, I went to the rural India. I worked with them. I understood them. Now my understanding of this country is better than it was 3 years back. And somewhere Gandhi was the inspiration for this.
Wow, that is fascinating.
Yeah,
I think just going and interacting at the real grassroots level changes you also as a person.
Absolutely. You go there with so many concepts. So when you go there, the first thing you should learn is that all your concepts need to be thrown in the dustbin. So unlearning is the first step.
Unlearning is the first learning.
Always.
Like anything great, right? You always need to unlearn before you can really deep dive into it. So the next book that we're moving on to is Autobiography of a Yogi by Paramhansa Yogananda. So, Mayank, tell us a little about this book. It's one of the most widely read books in the world and a lot of people's favorites.
I think this was about 20 years back I read it, and I read it the whole night. I could not sleep. And then this book has lived with me all my life, and I'm also a Kriya Yogi.
Okay.
Oh,
and
lovely.
luckily I am in the same lineage as Paramhansa Yogananda.
Oh, wow.
And it has changed me completely. It's a fascinating account of what can happen, what can be done. So beyond the limitations of normal human body and human minds is another realm. So this book somehow touches that realm. So we say that there are 3 phases of life. One is the mind-body complex. Another is the world existence. And the third is energies beyond the existence. So this book gives us an indication where that energies are. How do you reach that? How do you access that? And how do you put it back into yourself? So this book, to my mind, is the most powerful book on... it's a powerful beginner's book to go deeper into spiritual practices and spiritual testing.
Great. And I also think that, like we mentioned earlier, Osho and, Yogananda and all of these autobiographies, they're so different, like the ones we're discussing today. Gandhi was, working for the country, and, Yogananda is talking about yoga. Osho talks about a very different kind of, spiritual enlightenment or whatever you want to call it. But,
this is a man, Osho is a man who can change you completely, your thought process, and he would go into aspects. He's a wordsmith, and his arguments would change you. This book particularly is such a fascinating book about how. So they ask him, why are you a rich man's guru, or why are you having Rolls Royce, or why did you, and his childhood, and how his childhood was so different. I think till the age of 7 or 8 he did not speak much. He just kept alone. He had no friends. He had nothing. And how that allowed him to get out the energies and the knowledge from within which is there. So all our lives we are learning what somebody else's knowledge is.
Yeah.
It is Osho in his childhood when he did not have somebody else's knowledge. So his own knowledge that came out from within. I think that is what made Osho.
Yeah. For all our listeners, we are talking about the autobiography of a spiritually incorrect mystic, which talks about Osho's life and how he became the self-anointed god, Bhagwan.
There's a wonderful chapter in which he says why he was called a Bhagwan and how he... I mean, just his thinking is so fascinating and so different from our normal what we think. We build some concept and we build something, and he just goes and puts us dynamite there and breaks all your...
there were a lot of controversies around Osho, but I still feel like a lot of things he said made sense.
You should read because it goes into those controversies. Why was he called Bhagwan? Why was he a rich man's thing? Why did he have Rolls Royce? He explains it. And he explains it in such a beautiful manner that you suddenly start wondering, of course, this makes so much sense. Right. And all these years we were saying, oh, he's a sex guru, he's a this. But when he explains, you suddenly start feeling, of course, this makes sense. Yeah. So this book is so interesting for that same reason.
It's fascinating. I think the whole world has been refascinated by Rajneesh Osho after the Netflix documentary
Wild
Country was released. And definitely, I've read a couple of his books actually, not this one, but a couple of the others. And I just find his writing style very hard-hitting, and you can't deny it. You know, whatever he is saying is based in
like a stiletto. It goes right inside you and turns it around.
It's just based in such logic that is undeniable. So you'll have to be illogical or irrational to, disagree with what he's saying. So I found the books that I read of Rajneesh pretty fascinating.
This particular book takes on all the allegations and gives such intelligent replies that all that you have found about him, thought about him, just gets
changed completely.
Dynamite.
Okay. So can you tell us why he was called Bhagwan?
Well, he says that he was earlier a master.
Okay.
And people used to come to learn from him. And he never used to give diksha to people. He never used to give energies to people. They were just... So he was a teacher and they were students.
Right.
Right.
So then one day he decided that he will give diksha to people. He will transform them so that they understand that they themselves are God. So we all are God.
Right.
But that transformation can only be given by oneself to oneself.
Okay.
So once he started doing that, some of the people who were saying, then you could not call him a master because now he was doing something different.
Yeah.
Right.
So some of his followers started calling him Bhagwan. And he liked that term because Bhagwan is to go within yourself and to flower yourself and to find yourself.
Okay.
So, and what that did was once you were called Bhagwan, there were people who said, what the hell? Who are you to be to call yourself Bhagwan? So the people who started thinking like that, and who appointed you Bhagwan? So Rajneesh says, who appointed Ram Bhagwan? Or who appointed Krishna Bhagwan?
Yeah.
Because somebody higher than him has to appoint him. And there is nobody higher than a Ram or a Krishna. So a lot of these students of his started going away.
Okay.
And he got space. So he said that was the finest thing that happened. I am not a teacher. I don't want to teach any students. I am somebody who will make you discover yourself.
Right.
Yeah.
Because you need to flower. I think that whole argument, if you read that chapter and how he became he was called a Bhagwan and what it meant, and this whole thing is so beautifully explained, and how his journey in life from a master to a Bhagwan to a Osho took place is really, really fascinating.
I think the book is in 3 parts. It's like his childhood, then
correct,
Oregon, and all of those controversies, and then how he became Bhagwan.
It sounds fascinating.
It is
a great read, I guess, to find
read about why he had 99 Rolls Royce, or why he was a rich man's guru. So very interesting. He used to say, I can only be a rich man's guru. Either you have to be rich in intelligence or rich in money. Because once you are tired of the normal life, then you would go into music and art. Once you are tired of music and art, then you would start understanding the meaning of life.
Right.
That's when you become rich. only those people I am interested in. I am not interested in people who will come and say, "Mere bete ko naukri do, mere ko ye karo." So I am only looking for rich people. Either you have to be rich in intelligence or rich in money, and you are tired of the rest of world, and you want to go beyond that.
Right. Wow.
The tip of your Maslow's theory.
And I think the last author that we're going to discuss, and this is just the author, is P.G. Wodehouse. I believe you're a big fan of all his books.
PG
Tell us why.
Yeah, what can you say of PG? He's just a stress breaker. He's just too good. I mean, I must have read all the PGs for 20 times, 30 times.
Wow.
So that, especially the Smith series or the...
Okay.
So they were, I mean, for him, for a Bertrand Wooster, the toughest thing would be that some of his aunt would come at 11 o'clock and wake him. So there is no bigger tragedy in life than that.
The Jeeves series is...
Jeeves series, that entire... So it takes and his language and his control over the language is so humorous. One would pour into a seat rather than say it. So it's just... Yeah. So every line, if I read, sometimes I am sitting alone and laughing, and my children ask me, "Are you gone mad?" So
it's definitely rereadable. It's an easy read and it's fun,
very
light.
And between all this serious stuff that I do, this is my buster.
So the stress buster that really
absolutely
takes you away from the harsh realities and into the PG Wodehouse world. Great. And before we end the podcast, just a couple of questions on your reading habits. Like, do you prefer reading on the Kindle? Do you prefer reading on physical books? What is your preferred?
You're not going to like this, but I don't read at all.
You don't read at all?
It must have been... I only read the Bhagavad Gita and I don't read anything else. I used to read, but I have stopped reading everything but the Bhagavad Gita.
Okay.
And that too only by one Shamacharan Lahiri and Bhupendranath Sanyal. So I read that again and again. So every day I read 1 or 2 shlokas with the complete interpretation. But that's all I read.
You've pivoted to writing now. So
I think it's a one-off because I thought that it was an incomplete mission. It was my duty to do it. So I'm not a writer per se.
But a regular reader of the Bhagavad Gita. So
that's the only book I read. As for the last year and a half, I've stopped. Prior to that, I had gone from fiction, non-fiction to spiritual books. From there now only into... So I'm focusing myself into a much narrower beam of reading rather than a general one.
But that's exactly what we tell all our members as well. That, you should curate your learning to the field that you want and sort of, have your 10,000 hours of practice in it. And
Great. So thank you, Mayank Gandhi, for being with us today and sharing your insights on these books. We look forward to having you on our show again. Up and Down is available on Amazon as well as all major retailers. And a big thank you to all our listeners. You can follow the Open Library Project on LinkedIn, Instagram and Facebook for latest updates on our events, and stay tuned for the next Paperback podcast on IVM Podcasts. You can follow IVM Podcasts on Facebook, Instagram and Twitter at IVM Podcasts. Happy listening.
Advertising is dead. Yep, you heard me right. Advertising is dead. We're all in the content business now. Let's not call it news, TV, radio, etc., etc. It's all content, and we're in the middle of this weirdly exciting phase where all the borders and lines that have been drawn over decades has been swept away by this lovely thing called the internet. We're a show where we don't dwell on just the stuff that is now, but rather the wider stuff about advertising, media, content, and the whole goddamn circus surrounding it. Tune in every Tuesday for our weekly unboxing of the mystery box we used to call advertising. I'm Varun Dugirala, co-founder and content chief at The Glitch, and this is my new podcast, Advertising is Dead.
Hey Meghnad, do you know how to citizen?
Hey Shreyas, do you know how to citizen?
Hey Meghnad, do you know how to citizen?
Hey Shreyas, let's just do a podcast about it.
Let's do a podcast about it. A podcast is called How to Citizen. In every episode, we get a new guest and discuss one chapter from the 8th grade civics textbook. Think about it as 3 friends revising before a test, and we go back to school. There's nostalgia, there's trauma, there are lunch breaks, there are favorite teachers, there are horrible teachers, there's everything.
So every Tuesday, we bring in a guest on the podcast and we ask them a very simple question. Do you know how to citizen?
Meghnath, I think the question is, do you know how to citizen?
But Shreyas, I'm asking you this question. Do you